The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico with it.
Some big-time games and shots. How about this? Where have you been? MC knocking him down twice. Looking top and keeping it alive. House from knee. Got it. This kid is amazing. This is what got them in trouble. That ball screen giving up the mid-range. Look at this foul. House again. It's topping. Fifth assist.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air. But New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State. And the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. My name is Ryan Tamori, and I am your host here. Glad to be back doing this. We're going to get into UNM's savage beating of Nevada, much to the pleasure of Lobo fan. 89-55 on one of the most weird times to schedule a college basketball game, as much as we love college basketball, to go up against the NFL and their conference championships. Hey, but what do I know? TV money. As always, I'm joined by, the hell with it. I'm going to do it anyway. It's a full house. I'm joined by Eric Malton, my business partner in this endeavor. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. Good. Happy to jump back on this thing with you guys. And yeah, even though it was an 8 p.m. game on a Sunday night, the Pit was still rocking and Lobo showed out. Definitely a savage beatdown, and really impressed with the overall defensive effort with the Lobos, and looking forward to Wednesday night. That should be another big one.
He's been a Lobo fan since 1970. He's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. His name is Ed Nunez, and I'm sure, much like many other Lobo fan, he was super happy with what happened the other night.
Yes, you know what, I was able to watch the game with my son, and we had a really good time, and we both, breaking the game down as it went along, and yes, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it.
You can follow him at NM Sports Capper, and he knows all the players' heights. And hey, he called it. If you go back and listen to our previous episode, which I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but he called it. We asked him what the spread would be. He had UNM -7 over Nevada. Mr. Jacob Neff, hey man, how are you doing?
Doing good, Ryan. Ready to talk about this game, some other topics that we're going to talk about. This team's starting to get national attention, and it feels good. It feels like it's back in the old days.
All the way from the Bay Area. Two-time offensive state lineman and an MVP of a Filipino men's league over 35 years of age. And he was at the NFC Championship. I know we're talking basketball, but he went. Mr. Richard Thompson, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Just getting my voice back. So glad that I got to go to the game. Quite an experience. And happy to break these games down here and talk about the upcoming one versus Boise.
Before we go any further, and Rick and all you guys, thank you for joining us. And I love that bass slap at the end of that theme song. More sponsors, if I can find them. Looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road, head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. It's only a few minutes away from the Santa Ana Star Casino. Catch the Lobos, other college football games, college basketball games, probably all the NBA and NHL action right now. Stop by for foods, drinks, and all other sports. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Abrazo Homes, they are Lobo-owned, Lobo-operated, and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to our friends Kurt Roth and Drew Herrig over at the 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo Familia. Looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico? Find them at abrazohomes.com. Eric, I'm going to throw it to you on the spot. We also have affordable solar. and we have a promo with them.
Yeah, really cool promo. We were able to work with them, Affordable Solar, local solar company. We're actually going to be doing a promo now. We'll release on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, more information to come on that. But it's actually a ticket giveaway to an upcoming men's Lobo basketball game. They're offering 2 tickets to people who want to go ahead and visit their website and fill out a form. So their website's affordable-solar.com/quickstart form contact. We'll provide the link below in the comments of this video. Information will also be in our social media. Basically, fans that want to go out there, fill out their form, include hashtag the Pit Press in the comment section. What that's going to do is they'll schedule a free in-home consultation with one of their sales reps, and they'll go ahead and get you some free tickets to the next few Lobo games is what I think they're still trying to determine which game it is, but 2 tickets for anyone that wants to sign up and do a free home in consultation. Again, we'll go ahead and share that stuff on all our social media platforms. So I'm happy they were able to put a promo like that together and willing to partner with us.
Really happy to have them on board. And I would imagine the way tickets are going on sale these days, well, I guess they're flying off the shelves like hotcakes. I don't even think that's a saying. I just made that up, but they're going fast. And I would imagine down the stretch, we only have so many home games left. I think 4 or 5. So very cool. We appreciate them over at Affordable Solar. We'll get into the game. We have many various topics we're going to get into. We're not just going to necessarily focus on Nevada. We're doing this about 48 hours after the game. But obviously the big story was Alford and Neal coming back to the pit. And it was, I don't know, for a Sunday night, given how many 49ers jerseys I saw in the stands, this is pretty cool. This is, I think, courtesy of Lauren Green of KOB. I thought when you listen to that, Jared Chester had video. If you go to either of their pages, whoever had video of that, the booing was pretty good. I was impressed. Again, I like Coach Alford. I had the pleasure of at least a minimal professional working relationship with him and Coach Neal. I wrote a couple stories on when Coach Neal was, there's one, Ed, reference to my journalism days at the Daily Lobo. And they were cool. I have nothing bad to say. Across the street with football was a whole different story. My thoughts on the game. I didn't play the game. I don't understand the X's and O's. I love watching college basketball and I love gambling on it. Excuse me. Let me retract that. I love losing money on it. I'm pretty, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to limit myself to my one curse word in this episode.
These guys ain't so fucking bad.
These guys ain't so bad. They're really good. I had a conversation with a couple of other friends that are Lobo fans, and somebody had mentioned like who in the country is better than them. Name like 5 teams: Purdue, UConn, North Carolina. And by that I mean the way they are playing now. 89-55. Jaylen House fed off of it. He got elbowed in the face. He loves Randy Orton. Randy Orton lost a fatal 4-way match on Saturday night in the Royal Rumble. I can't believe I'm mentioning that. A lot of news in the WWE world there, but he popped back up. He was in their head. The crowd was into it. I got to say this about the pit. It felt like a nightclub on a Sunday night. It felt like it was bonkers in there. I was pretty impressed, and they got 15,000 people. Somebody was commenting on Twitter they didn't sell it out. Well, it was by 30 seats, it wasn't sold out. It was loud. It was obnoxious in there. Again, I continue to be impressed, and this guy continues to get, by this guy I mean me, get shut up. They look like a buzzsaw, and I'll get to it with you guys. I don't know how the hell Boise comes in here on Wednesday, because the way they play and how they figure out how to slow down this UNM men's basketball team, because Richard Pitino, and by the way, Patino was in the house the other night. Rick Pitino, he always apparently makes an effort to see his son play, so he was here. And we'll get into some of bracketology. Pundits are having fun with it, pinning them up against each other in the first round of the tournament. This is a very pretty, as far as my knowledge watching, pretty efficient team, Nevada Wolfpack team, that was held to 33% shooting. So kudos to the defense. I'm a big defensive guy. I say it a million times. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, and defense wins championships. Ed, I was talking to Ned James, and he was like, "You're a quarterback guy," and I was like, "No, I'm not." I will reference that. I saw a defensive line essentially win a Super Bowl when everybody else sucked, and that includes the quarterback. Ed, I'm going to start with you. Just your overall thoughts of the Nevada game.
You called it a buzzsaw, and it was 11-0 run to start the game. One of the things I noticed right away, I think they went to Blackshear or Coleman right away. Nevada did. They posted up Dent. He had them. They didn't get it. And after that, it went downhill. This was a good first set. My son and I saw it. You got a size advantage. Let's go to it. Let's work it. He was open. They messed it up. And from that point on, their offensive output really was sporadic. My son made some great points about House having to chase Blackshear through picks. He had to do a lot of that, and he did a great job of it. He really did. They Blackshear and Coleman shot 6 of 22 combined. New Mexico 11 to 22 from three, 34-58 from the field, 58% shooting. Nelly had 12 and 10. Somebody might have said, "Hey man, where was he in the second half?" They didn't need him, but he had a great first half, backing people down, left-handed shot off the glass, the drop step. That's been money. Nevada shot 33.9% from the field, 4 of 17 from three. And a lot of their shots I felt were contested. Strong defense. When the big man got in foul trouble, they were in trouble. Pope came in, that one slam in traffic wowed everybody. It did. I came out of my seat. Oh my goodness. But that didn't get them over the hump. They got within 9. And then my son mentioned this too. They outscored the Nevada 34-11 down the last 6 minutes. And it was over. House playing the way he did, the Mountain West Conference Player of the Week. He had 4 steals, 25 points off of turnovers for UNM. Fast break points, UNM 26, Nevada 7. And it's what we talked about. When you're playing like that, and you can tell the togetherness of the team too. They're all together. You can tell by the way they're communicating. Eric and Rick and Jacob, you played on teams. You know how teams are when you're winning. You know how it is. Everybody's in tune, man, and everything's going right. So I think that's the way I saw it. My son made some other points I'll get to later, but Amzil, again, the bench production, Amzil shooting with confidence. When New Mexico is making 11 of 22 from threes and they're not a three-point shooting team and they're playing downhill and running and gunning and stealing, Dent scoring in transition, you're seeing those fantastic plays. So how do you stop that? Again, we mentioned that. And I'll say this about Mash, 6 of 9, mid-range Mash. I think that quad injury might have been worse than we thought because I'm seeing a spring and bounce, straight up. Shooting mechanics have been good. No. Last couple of games, he's shot well and shot within the flow of the offense. So I thought you mentioned it, Rick. You called it a savage beating a couple of months ago. In New Mexico, this was a savage beating. They hadn't beat Alford here in the pit, and my son asked when they came down the ramp. They got the boos. How long are they going to boo them? Every time they come down that ramp, every single time. That's how many times. Now, I think, Ryan, that Coach Alford might have appreciated what he had in New Mexico. I think, he went to UCLA and he got fired, and then he probably figured, hey, New Mexico is a pretty good place to me. I think he's kind of changed. Coach Neal's a little bit different, man. He left here trashing the fans. I don't Coach Hustle. My feelings towards him are probably a little bit different than they are towards Steve Alford. When I see him, I'm like, gosh, he quit on us. I always believe that when his son transferred, he quit on New Mexico. I really believe that he did. So it was great to beat them, a great victory. So I can't wait to see tomorrow night. I think it's one of those things that you're seeing them play so well, and you can't wait to see the next game to see what's going to happen.
I agree with you there. I am really that 30-5 team in 2009, 2010. Man, when they got into conference play, they were so much fun to watch. Lost my train of thought, but anyway, I'm going to go to you, Rick. if you would have thought that UNM would have had a 34-point victory and JT Toppin would have only had 5 points, I probably would have called you crazy. I think maybe kind of stress about how it was a total team effort. I mean, because that's what it was. And then I was also going to ask you, we've all kind of beaten up on Mustafa Emzil. Great game again, 11 points, makes his free throws, and he was 50% from the 3-point line. But just your overall thoughts about how they still demolished Nevada, even without JT Toppin not having a great game.
Right, like you said, he only played 21 minutes, 5 points, 5 boards, but he was plus 26 in those minutes, right? 2 blocks. He even showed his range with that 3, which was impressive to me. He stepped right into it. So, even though he didn't have a lot of points or a lot of minutes, the Lobos are a deep enough team, as we're seeing. They have all 5 of their starters. One of them can break out, or 2 of them on any given night, and that's just the balance that the Lobos are blessed with right now. And I think, like you're mentioning, that also extends to the bench. And I think that's where the Lobos have an advantage. I don't know the exact numbers compared to the rest of the conference, but looking at consistent bench players around the conference, I don't see something that matches up with what the Lobos have right now in terms of what Washington and Amzil are providing. Amzil just continuing to knock down threes, 2 rebounds, hustling out there in Washington. I think he had a better game than his past few, 3 of 6 from the field, had a steal. And, Baker, he only played a couple of minutes, and 2 for 2, he still made those threes that he shot. So I think the bench, we're seeing who's going to get the minutes. Mushila also had 7 minutes. He was plus 14 in those 7 minutes. And I think on the Nevada side, it's tough when you fall down 10-0 right off the back. The one game that I played in the pit in high school in the state tournament in 2005 was in the pit, and it was an 8 a.m. pit game against Deming. We went down about 10-12-0 before we could even get on the court. It seemed like it was over. And when you're playing in that type of game, it just seems like you're fighting an uphill battle the whole game. And they did make a run at it in the second half when they cut it to 9, but the Lobos just answered with 2 quick threes, another few possessions, another 2 threes. It was just raining down on Nevada at that point. And the Lobos just had total control. So it was an impressive win. For me, just looking down the road, it's still, they need to prove, that they can win against one of the top teams in the conference on the road. I don't think any other team outside of Utah State has really done that yet. So until the Lobos do that, this is all great. All the conference players of the week and all the rankings talk is great, but we're in the same position as last year if we don't capitalize on the end of the season here. So just looking forward to it, but really impressed.
It's not how you start, it is how you finish. And I think this team has come a long way since like December or November. Eric, I'm going to go to you. I know we've already touched on it, but Jaylen House, 7 of 13 from the field, 4 of 8, 50% from 3-point line. He has 21, plus or minus 29, 6 assists. I think he was the first, I think in Steve Kirkland's notes from UNM, thank you again. He was the first Mountain West Conference player in 14 years to have a 26-6 game. It was 6 assists, 6 steals. And then I will ask this later, but a burning question and a yearly award. So you know where we're going with that. But just your overall thought on his play, because I don't know, man. I don't know if there's anybody that's played like him here. I could be wrong. I'm always thinking like we always talk about him being erratic, and I'm just wondering if it's the wheels are going to fall off. But I mean, he's just playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah, well, we didn't get the good House this last game. We got the great House, and I think with his game, he thrives off the energy of the crowd. He thrives off the energy of the game, and sometimes he thrives off of like the craziness that could be kind of in that high paced crazy game. That's kind of where his game kind of fits around, causing havoc, right? I think this team as a whole, not just House, comes alive when they start putting a lot of ball pressure on. I was looking at a stat on Ken Palm, which right now the Lobos sit at 9th in the nation in steal percentage. They also sit at number 19 in turnover percentage on the defensive side. So I think that's the biggest driving force with this team right now. The offense is definitely being created by the defense, and you can see just from a defensive perspective, the rotation, the craziness that House is kind of creating from initial on-ball pressure. Ed alluded to it early with just him being able to kind of shut down Jared Lucas and Donovan Dent. That first possession when he had to go one-on-one with Blackshear, did not back down. Dent is more physical and athletic than I think we give him credit for. What did Blackshear have on him? At least 3 or 4 inches. You couldn't tell because Dent did a really good job of defending him, and I wanted to kind of give him a lot of credit where that was due. And if you look at this team on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of that started with House being able to kind of force some steals, a lot of action on the defensive side, and that's what gets this energy going. That's what get the crowd going, and that's what House kind of thrives off of. So when he starts to see some of those shots fall, he made that and one. He kind of goes into his antics and he likes to get involved with the crowd. He even got teed up for kind of doing that pump down to the ground. I don't blame him for trying to get amped up like that. I don't mind the technical in that type of situation, but man, we're witnessing something special. I don't think UNM has seen a player like that in a long, long time, and definitely carrying this team and definitely the heart and soul of this team.
Now, if I'm going to go to you, and I'm sorry, Rick had kind of touched on it, and I was going to ask you the bench points. They have 25, just all the odd knick-knack stats, but like 25 points off turnovers, 30 points in the paint. Nevada did have 3 more second chance points. They had 24 fast break points because they were running 26 points from the bench. You're not going to beat a team. It's just, to me, it was too much for Nevada. And I thought Nevada was going to come here and here swinging, and they were just out of rhythm from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this team gets people down right off the bat, and it's hard to come back. And the reason why is because once they start off hot on defense, it's just a building momentum of who's going to get the next steal, who's going to have the next block, right? You can see them buying into the defensive end, and that's something that I've been talking about all week long, and even during the game, on Twitter, is you haven't seen this type of basketball be played by UNM, I mean, for a long time. And in college basketball, you have to play defense. You just have to. Those are the teams that are successful. Look at the championship game last year, San Diego State, UConn, 2 of the top defensive teams in the country. And you have to take advantage of turnovers, and you have to take advantage of scoring on turnovers. And right now, they're doing it. I mean, 25 points off turnovers to the other team's 11. It was even a bigger margin against San Jose State. And this team's capitalizing on all the right things and building momentum on all the right places. As far as the bench, we're getting most of our contribution from 2 guys, but we're able to put in about 3 or 4 for consistent minutes and not see any drop off in the level of play, even though their stats aren't showing up on the stats sheet most of the time. They're still giving them valuable minutes. And like you said, Mushila is still like plus 12 or whatever it is. And the limited time that he played, he only had 2 rebounds, but you could see he's giving it his effort on the defensive end. He's playing, down inside at 6'4". It's just plug and play and do whatever you can out there. Something that I wanted to make a note of, and I posted this on Twitter that night, is that the leading scorer for Nevada had 9 points. And Jared Lucas has been held under double-digit points 2 times this year, once against San Diego State and once against UNM. And that's tough. I mean, that guy is a legit scorer. He never stops running. It's almost like the Steph Curry of college basketball. I mean, that guy just runs up and down the baseline around screens, and if he just gets like a little inch of room, he'll put it up. I mean, we saw his first basket that he made in the game he didn't even have an inch. He just threw it up because the shot clock was expiring and he made it. But when you think about the leading scorer on the team having 9 points, I mean, that's just everybody getting shut down. There's no answer to that. You can't rely on somebody to get you points. I thought it was really interesting that Nevada kept playing that slow style of pace. They never wanted to pick up the pace and play with UNM. Never. You could see it from the very beginning. You could see it throughout the game. I didn't think that they knew what to do once they got down, because their plan obviously coming into that game was, let's slow it down and try and keep ourselves in the game and see how long we can drag this out. Before you knew it, they were already down by double digits in 3 or 4 minutes, and then it just kept extending for most of the game until they made that run, and then the Lobos just turned it on. It was like putting gas on a fire. It erupted. So really impressed by that. And yes, this team is deeper than a lot of teams in the Mountain West, and that's why they're winning these games, because you have to have bench contribution in college basketball as well.
We didn't want to delve into Boise State, or excuse me, Nevada, for the whole podcast. Just some quick hits there, just because of the time constraints, and we'll touch on Boise a little bit. But kind of like a wraparound. I had thought of this question, and I was going to pose it to each of you. And I've been the biggest player hater of this ball on this show. What I've seen out of Jaylen House the last couple games on this 5-game winning streak and what they've done, he is completely in the conversation for Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. As we record this, Colorado State beat San Diego State 79-71. And I'm just thinking of the top 3 guys. Jaden Ledee is 20 points a game, 8 rebounds, an assist a game. Those are, as we've mentioned, it's all American numbers. Isaiah Stevens of Colorado State, 16 points a game, 3 rebounds, 7 assists. I know a lot of people could argue he's one of the more prolific guards in the country. I'm trying to think who's I was thinking RJ Davis. Oh my God, Jacob Kolek. What's his first name from Marquette?
Tyler Kolek.
Yeah. Tyler Kolek. Yeah, that's it. Tyler Kolek. Just trying to think of some guards around the country that are really good, but man, he's Fred Hoiberg's son on Nebraska, and then the Japanese guy who's phenomenal, by the way. And then
Abe Smith.
Yeah, he had a man. They gave Houston all they could handle the other Monday night, Big Monday. I'm just going to say this, and I'm rambling. I think Jaylen House has completely played his way into Mountain West Player of the Year. I see Jaden Ledee's number. I've been a wholehearted San Diego State defender. I think I've mentioned it's very good for the conference. I haven't been all that impressed with them, and I'm not saying that because I hate to say it, because I'm not saying that because we're on this podcast, and who we predominantly cover. I haven't been all that impressed with them. I haven't been all that impressed with Colorado State. Obviously, knocking off San Diego State at home is good. Boise State, I'm impressed with Utah State too. I'm really impressed with Utah State. I think what Danny Sprinkle has done there, Greg Brown, and then great Osabor. I think the way they run, and they took punches from Boise State the other night. They're good. I think it might be turning into a horse race between UNM and Utah State. Obviously, the jury's still out, because I don't think UNM has a quality road win. And you're talking about, they need to be 12 or 13 in the AP poll. South Carolina is getting like no love. They're like, we're on a bubble a week or two ago. They had a big win against Kentucky at home. They went on the road tonight after we record this, and knock off number 5 Tennessee. Basically had the lead the entire game. I mean, head to head, you just have to have UNM and South Carolina play each other. But I'm going off on a tangent. Ed, and I'll start with you. Just your thoughts on maybe Jaylen House in consideration for Player of the Year, and is that an award he could win?
I believe the way he's playing lately, yes. I mean, look at the last 5 games, and New Mexico's margin, I believe, is it was in the paper. Their margin of victory in the last 5 games is 17, 18 points around there. It might be more. But you asked who he plays like that's played here, and I'm trying to think. Ruben Douglas was a scorer. The point guards that I saw play here, Petey Gibson was a pure point guard. Greg Brown, a shooting point guard, but Greg didn't play like Jaylen. Daryl McGee, a distributor. Phil Smith, we had on last week, a pure point guard and distributing, we could score. Is Kelvin Scarborough end-to-end speed, a little bit similar, but didn't play like that either. So he's got a style. He's a combination point guard, shooting guard that can, when he's playing the way he's playing, look how effective he's been. And Eric, you mentioned the on-the-ball defense, the disruptor. You've mentioned it too, Rick, the guy that's the pest that, he's right on top of you. And sometimes he's going to pick up some cheap fouls, and you live with it. So, yes, Ryan, to your question, he's absolutely played himself. Look at the way he's played. And he got Lucas so mad the other night. The guy throws an elbow at him. That's what he gets under your skin. And then he's playing to the crowd. The crowd is 15,000 the other night. He really plays downhill. But remember this. And look, I'm a Lobo fan, like Brian says, in 70. But we love it now. Love it. Got to protect home court tomorrow night. There's some road challenges ahead at Utah State, Boise State, San Diego State, at Wyoming. The road challenges are way different. We know that. Playing in this building here, just down the street from where I live, is a magical place. And that's why I love being there, because the fans are on top of you. They really are. And it helps you. Sometime we'll get Greg Brown on here, I hope, and he'll tell you what the Pit meant to him when he played. He said it was worth 10 points when he was playing. So, yes, back to your answer or question, Ryan, I absolutely believe he's definitely a candidate for Mountain West Player of the Year.
Eric, just because I know you're big on him, I just your thoughts on that, and then I got some other questions for Rick and Jacob.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that statement. It definitely played his way into it. Look, like he had 6 steals in this last game. 6 steals is ridiculous for any player, and this is the 3rd or 4th time this season that he's had that many steals in a game. This game was, I guess, the difference in score and him just being able to kind of lead them into this style of play. They play so fast because of him. When you see him on the court, and I do sit on the floor right underneath the basket, he is lightning quick, and he plays with really good anticipation. He's really good with kind of jumping some of those passing lanes. Anytime the ball goes in the post or near the elbow and he's kind of on the perimeter guarding the guard, he will take a step or two kind of crashing towards the lane and just swipe down or swipe up on the ball. And he just somehow always seems to create a little bit of havoc. The ball gets loose, they come up with the steal, and it just leads to these fast break points. It led to that one Donovan Dent hammer, just like the crowd erupted. But he does that every night that he plays, and he might not come up with 6 steals every game, but he definitely has that impact on a game from the defensive side. And then when you get the combination of him on the offensive side, where he just kind of makes some ridiculous plays, and he's that run that I think Neff alluded to or talked about at the beginning of the podcast, where they went on that run towards the end of the game that pretty much sealed the deal. That was when House hit back-to-back threes and forced Nevada to take one of their last timeouts. And you could just tell, like, the blood was in the water, and it was done at that point. And that was all started by House. Like, House seems to just be involved in every play, every type of scenario where the Lobos are taking advantage and just kind of imposing their will. That's all kind of caused by House just being as crazy as he is on the floor. So yeah, definitely agree with that statement. I think he's played his way into that conversation.
I'm going to go to Neff here because he brought this up because he's the wizard. We were going to call this segment Neff's Numbers, and I didn't queue up anything. I did queue up this for you, Jacob, and I forgot.
It's your shot, Steve.
But he's never coming on our podcast again. You had mentioned UNM and the odds increasing for the Final Four. And it's pretty good value. Explain to our listeners what it was, I think Sunday night after the game or Monday night.
Sure.
Because I don't know. Just I'll let you explain it.
Yeah. Well, so you saw that. Well, if you don't pay attention to this, UNM was 40-1 to make the Final Four before Sunday night's game against Nevada. After the Sunday night game against Nevada, their odds dropped significantly to 22-1 to make the Final Four. UNM coming into Sunday night was 125-1 to win the national championship, dropped all the way down to 85-1 after they won that game. So that just goes to show you, when you see those lines being cut by that big of a margin, it's not just the buy-in from media, it's not just the buy-in from sports gamblers, it's not just the buy-in from people who watch the games and bet on them. That's buy-in from statistical analytics that Vegas runs that says this is the percentage if they keep playing at this rate based off their stats, based off what we've seen, is their chance of making it. And you could say whatever you want, and I'm not trying to say this is who they are, but you could look at a team like Florida Atlantic last year that got super hot. They still have pretty much the same team. Lots of guards, a big guy down low, a little bit of depth to come in, and they could shoot the ball. They play defense, and look what they did in last year's tournament. That's starting to become, it's not going to be abnormal to see 8, 9, 7 seeds make runs anymore in the tournament, because especially in a year like this year, there's so much parity in college basketball. You could name a handful of teams where you say, yeah, that team's in the upper echelon by themselves. And then after that, when you're looking at the top 25, and you could just see how it's been all year, it's been rotating up and down, dropping out, coming back in, dropping out, coming back in. Nobody's consistently winning in the top 25 from, the 10 spot down. It's a roulette wheel. It just keeps spinning around. So they see what this team's doing, and these style points are starting to rack up for them, because even though it is at home and it was Nevada and they won by 34 points or whatever, that's still hard to do. I mean, it really is. I mean, you blow a team out like that, and then now you're talking about 5 games in a row of double-digit wins convincingly. I just think this team has the attention of Vegas, has the attention of the entire country. I saw a couple people responding back and saying, the East Coasters already went to sleep Sunday night. It doesn't matter. When you wake up and you see 89-55, it doesn't matter if you fell asleep, watched it, or did, whatever the case is. You wake up and see that box score of 89-55, and you're like, that was total domination. That doesn't happen by mistake. So if they keep going at this pace and they get a couple more wins here coming up, because we're going to get to the tough part of our schedule really quick. If they keep this kind of momentum up, I think you're going to see those odds continuously drop, because if they keep playing like this, there's no way they could keep them at that big of odds.
You were mentioning the top 25, and a lot of those teams like that week 2 or 3 weeks ago where the top 10 just got brutally, it was the biggest shakeup. I mean, UConn's looked good, but I go back to Monday night, and Houston was on the road at Texas, and Duke was on the road at Virginia Tech, and they both won. And Houston gave up a big lead, but they ended up winning in overtime, and Duke manhandled Virginia Tech, a place that they had. Coach K had a tough time winning. Obviously, John Shire's in his second year, but they've had a hard time winning there. And, maybe there's going to be stability where teams have found themselves, much like UNM. Rick, I was trying to figure out what I was going to ask you. And I know Eric's played basketball, Ed's played basketball. But when you get into, and maybe I've asked this to you in the past, their schedule kind of favored up to them. But when you get into this grueling part, they go to Boise, they go to Nevada, they go to San Diego State, Nevada, and Boise, all at the end of February and the beginning of March. I'm going to the Boise game in March. What's your mindset, and how do you think Richard Pitino keeps these guys motivated?
I think Coach Leon Rice for Boise was actually mentioned this in his latest presser, that the Lobos are just playing with so much confidence right now, and you can see it. Every player really knows their role, and they're all stepping into their shots, and they're not second guessing anything like they were at the beginning of the season, where everyone was still kind of figuring out where they were going to fit into this big picture. And I don't think, we're giving or people in general are giving enough credit to Coach Patino. When you look at what he inherited here, it was garbage can. He was 5-6 win team, and it's only been 2-3 years, and look where we're at. And I think there was some people early in the season kind of questioning, if he was going to get all the guys on the same page. And I don't think there's any question about that right now. And what Patino said in his presser was, he doesn't even think that good coaching involves giving the rah-rah speech anymore. It's more about what they're doing in practice. And when they lost those 2 early games, it just, he said they went back to practice and they realized they had to work on those things. So I think when you're working hard in practice, it builds your confidence, right? And when you see it translate into the game, that makes you practice even harder. I saw some great pictures on social media. Imagine Toppin and Nelly going at each other in practice. Iron sharpens iron, and these guys I don't think are going to let down. And if they do suffer a win, or a loss on the road to one of these teams, I don't think it's going to, affect them. I think they're mentally strong enough now to just power through based on what we've seen. And the leadership of Mash, the quiet leadership. People aren't giving him enough credit for finding his role here. In the last 2 games, he's had efficient game shooting and distributed the ball, 3 assists the other night. So when you see a guy like that change his outlook on the game, it feeds off to the rest of the players. Like, oh, Mash is willing to sacrifice. What am I willing to do for this team? And everyone's bought in. So I don't see a letdown coming.
I think you're
I want to.
for that. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no, I want to add what Rick was saying. All really good points. And just going back to the Patino comment, like this team was dead last in the Mountain West and like ranked in the 250 plus on the defensive side of the ball last season. And it was their glaring weakness. And now you can argue that they probably have the strongest defense in the Mountain West and one of the top 50, top 40 defenses in all of the country. And that all starts with the scheme that they kind of implemented, the team buy-in from a leadership standpoint, guys like Mash, guys like House, guys like Nelly that come in and really just trying to preach that message that everyone's got to buy in. I mean, you played on some teams, and Ed, you do too. Like on the defensive side, you're only as good as your biggest weakness, because everyone's got to kind of move in harmony, right? Everyone's got to kind of cover the weak side. And when you look at them from the defensive perspective, you have the on-ball pressure on the perimeter, and anytime that ball gets fed into the post, the other post from the weak side comes over and double teams, and you guys got like guys like Mashburn and House kind of crashing and swiping at the ball, creating turnovers. This whole team is bought in on that defensive scheme, and I think that's all kind of being laid out there for Patino. I think he knew he needed to address it in the offseason, and not only did he address it, but I think they're capitalizing on really just exploiting teams on the defensive side.
One quick point, if I could, Ryan. I think those, Rick and Eric, great points. Addition by subtraction, or you lost KJ Jenkins, Emmanuel Quach, Josiah Alec, Morris Udeze, Javante Johnson. The guys you brought in, and Nelly, Toppin, the rim protection, the blocks at the rim, though that changed a lot of things. When you got guys going in there and there's a threat of getting your shot blocked, it makes you change things, not go up as strong. You're looking over your shoulder, the on-the-ball defense by and then True coming off the bench. Amzil. Amzil's played really well. We talk about togetherness. The guy that I watch body language. I coached before. So I watch guys to see if they're mad about not coming in. The guy that I give a lot of credit to is Sheila. He started. He started in 2 years where he was at. And I look at him, I watch him to see if he's upset. Man, he smile on his face when he goes in there, he produces. So I think all those things together, along with that defense addition by subtraction, the guys that you brought in as far as defensively, made your team. Look at the way Nelly covers and pick and roll, the hedge out, hedge and get back. He's done a great job. Active hands, stealing. So I think the guys that they brought in, the guys that they lost, no offense against any of those guys. I don't know. Emmanuel Quach actually had 27 points the other night. He hadn't done much here. He was always somebody you thought might play well, but he was hurt. So the guys they brought in were much better than the guys, Josiah Alec probably would have helped. He left on his own volition. He's the one that wanted to leave. But the guys they brought in have made New Mexico a much better defensive team.
Jacob, I'll go to you because I think Houston sets the precedence for what defense is in this country right now. I think you would kind of mention they might be as good as Houston.
I mean, I look at this team, man, and like Eric was just alluding to, you talk about everybody has to buy in. I mean, if you have one weakness on a basketball court on the defensive end, they're going to exploit it. And when you have one weakness, you have to overcompensate for that weakness on the court because you always have to cheat to know that, hey, I got to cover that guy. I've got to help him. I've got to do this. Right now, there is none of that. I mean, even Mashburn has stepped up and played significantly better defense. I mean, just even from two games ago. I mean, I saw him a couple games ago, you know, kind of lollygagging on the baseline, get caught up in some screens. A guy got it past to, and he was like, you know, 5-6 feet away, and the guy was able to get a clean shot. But even Mashburn's been playing tough defense. He's been following him around. If I'm not mistaken, there was a couple times during that game I saw him even following Lucas around off of screens, and that's big because, you know, he was probably our biggest liability last year on the defensive end, and he stepped up. And, you know, I don't know what it was. I give all the credit to Patino because even if House was the one that came out and said, we need to step up our defense, I want you to be the leader. I want you guys to I want you to get these guys to buy into the defensive end like you do. It's worked. And whatever they do, like Rick was saying, you know, iron sharpening iron in practice. I mean, imagine having to go against House every day in practice for Dent, for Mashburn, for these guys. I mean, there's not going to be any pressure on the court that you're going to face from the opposing side that you haven't seen in practice. So, yeah, when you look at the top defensive teams in the country, they're rated 21 right now. And like Eric was saying, to go from 250th in the country to 21st with a big core of players coming back, that's a significant difference. And it's not just the steals. It's not just, you know, the intensity. It's the block shots. It's everything. So I really think that this team right now, you put them up against, you know, one of those bigger schools, they're going to give them problems. And once that team steps up to play that, you know, the Lobos, they're going to be like, okay, these guys can play defense, right? You could, you know, they might underestimate them at first. Like, oh, we've seen better teams than this in conference play when it gets to that point. But man, I mean, they're overwhelming this Mountain West Conference with defense, and it's great to see because, you know, San Diego State's been known for a very long time to be that type of team, and this year the Lobos are giving them everything that they want and more to be, you know, the best defensive team in the conference.
I think it's a valid point. One thing I also wanted to touch on before we get to Boise State, I'm going to be honest. I have Ken Palm. I look at it. We have Ken Palm. I look at it, and it hurts me. My dad would have loved that, and there's a reason I avoided math like the Black Plague at UNM. Bracketology, Lenardi. The reason I want to mention this because there were all fresh brackets out this morning, and I know people will be like, "Well, they haven't done anything yet." Yeah, we know, but it's a pretty good indication. Lenardi this morning has UNM as a 7 seed against Texas, as does Mike DeCourcy of Fox Sports in his bracket forecast in the Midwest. And Jerry Palm of CBS Sports has New Mexico, and I lost it. Where did it go? He had here it is. In the East, he's got St. John's as a 7 seed and UNM as a 10 seed. Eric, I'll go to you on this. When you hear that matchup, I mean, what do you think?
Man, that's exciting. Talk about college basketball world kind of just imploding on itself. I think that would be exciting to watch. Get a lot of national notoriety and media kind of around that game. And I mean, as a Lobo fan and as a of the Lobo community would come together, I think this fan base travels real well. So I'd imagine a lot of Lobo fans would really be anticipated to show up, right? And Man, I don't think you could ask for a better matchup, more exciting matchup, a really tough matchup too, because they're really good.
St. John's is good. Ed, you've talked about it. We talked about it with Phil Smith. Just all the great games you've seen throughout the years. I mean, for a Patino matchup in the first round, when you hear that, you're shaking your head already. I'll just let you.
Yeah, just seeing him at the pit, his picture that I saw of him, one of the greatest coaches in basketball history. Louisville, Kentucky, Providence, Iona, and now St. John's in the pros, the Knicks. I'm trying to think if he coached another team in the NBA. I thought
Boston,
he did.
I think.
Boston. That's right. So
yeah, what did he say? He said Larry Bird ain't walking through that door, right? Those famous.
Yes, I think. Or Kevin was. Did he say McHale?
I think he said McHale. Rick might know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but all I know is he brought Ron Mercer with him from Kentucky, and I loved Ron Mercer, but he did not work out in the end.
That didn't turn out too well, right? I remember that didn't turn out too well. But when I hear that, not only am I shaking my head, I'm getting tingles up my spine. Like, wow, that would of course that would be that'd be a great matchup for New Mexico. But the old man versus the son, and the old man's probably got just a few more notches on the belts, a few more. But that would be so exciting that I'm thinking about it now. And I would definitely want my wife. Let's try to make it to that game. So that's exciting. But I think Jacob, you hit the nail. Even with the numbers in Las Vegas, man, the stuff you're saying, I'm not in tune with that. But the stuff you're saying about the Las Vegas numbers and what that indicates, that's exciting too, because they're taking a different look in New Mexico and seeing the way they're playing. So that's exciting. That all of it's exciting to me. Being a fan for as long as I've been, and again, I've been really excited at some points, and then the Harvard loss that still sticks in my craw. The loss that you guys weren't even born for when they lost to Cal State Fullerton in 1978. All they need to do is win one game, and they're here at the pit for the regionals. There's no way they lose, right? No way. All my friends have tickets. We're like, we can't wait. Next week we go to the pit. You can't even give them away. It's okay though. It's San Francisco, UCLA, Arkansas. We saw some Cal State Fullerton, saw some great ball. But I think when you ask about all the great games, somebody wrote this in a paper that or online. We're seeing an era of great New Mexico basketball, and we are. And maybe not an era, but a season right now that we haven't seen in a long time. Rick Wright compared them to the 2008-9 Lobos and compared them favorably. That team with Martinez and Hobson and Hardiman.
2009, 2010.
2010. Gary, he compared them very favorably, saying that this team has more depth than that team did. And I read that and read it again and reread it. And Rick Wright, I've got a lot of respect for Rick Wright. That dude's been around 50 years, man. A lot of respect for him. Seen a lot of games. So when he said that, I'm like, I had to again. I don't want to get too, don't get too hyped up. But some of the things we've been seeing, we can't deny what our eyes have seen and what the stats, the breakdowns of these games have said to us or have resulted in. New Mexico 5 straight wins, and Rick, you said it, in dominating fashion, and that's something. So back to your point, I'm sorry I didn't mean to get sidetracked, but wow, that would be such a dream matchup. And of course, a lot has to happen before now and then. I just want to see New Mexico in the tournament with a good seed. What did we get against Harvard last time? A 5? I think
3.
A 3.
It was a 3.
If you guys remember, Charles Barkley had predicted New Mexico for the Final Four.
Oh yeah.
So man, that still gets me. But hey, I'm along for the ride. That's for sure.
And the field of 68, which they have a lot of their own drama going on tonight and last night. Who I like. They have UNM as a 17 playing Texas A&M. I know people would probably want to see want to see St. John's. I think a matchup against Texas, they're this, they probably don't think anything of New Mexico, but they're our neighbor to the east, and as is A&M. So I just think that's fascinating. We just want to look ahead to, I just want to do a little bit of bracketology talk because I think I think that's cool. That's all I have to say about that. I just think it's cool. It's the idea. I know it's not set in stone, and I think probably the release of the bracket now is my favorite thing. I've mentioned it. The Holy Grail used to be the day of all holiness in the sports world for me was Super Bowl Sunday. I still love the NFL, but I think, man, nothing beats Selection Sunday. That day with the couple of the conference finals, like the Big Ten and the SEC early on, and I think maybe the Big 12 might play Saturday. I think the ACC plays, but man, that's just those games, and then the selection show, and then the first 4 days of the tournament, especially the first two. Boise State rolls into town, and I don't know if the baseball team is going to be there. If you remember last year, we met. What were you going to say, Ed?
No, I remember the little skirmish up the ramp. Oh, yeah, I remember.
Eric and I had the pleasure of meeting Leon Rice, Tyson Degenhart, and Max Rice. Leon Rice was fantastic. We have that episode. Go give it a listen. The coaches we talked to, Nico Medved and Leon Rice, I've tried to effort them on this show. It's been a little bit difficult. Again, we don't do this full time. But Leon Rice was awesome. I mean, he was a character. He was fun to talk to. I mentioned Joe Scott from Air Force. He was phenomenal. So I like Leon Rice. Again, when you're doing this, it's a different ballgame. This is
Loves
a team
Snake. Loves
Leon
the
Rice.
Albuquerque fans.
Yeah, he's just. I know the Hellraisers are dressing up as your favorite. You're supposed to dress up as it's a game theme. You're supposed to dress up as your favorite baseball player. I wonder if the media, the game ops guys are going to have a lot of baseball music ready to go on Wednesday night. Maybe play Meet the Mets. Greet them. Bring your kiddies. Bring your wife. I think this team is missing Marcus Shaver a lot, and I'll head to the point guard on that. Tyson Degenhart's a phenomenal player. Max Rice is a phenomenal player. They got Omar Stanley from St. John's. They just look slow to me, and I thought they kind of punched Utah State in the face, but Utah State had a little bit more quickness. That game went into overtime. And I had high aspirations, and I'm how things have changed in my mind from what I've seen. I've been more impressed with, as I hit my mic, I've been more impressed with Utah State and UNM. But I don't see how they come in here and win on, if you're listening this tonight. To me, it just seems like a tall task. I thought Nevada was going to give them a hard time, unless Leon Rice is, got something up his sleeve. Rick, I'll start with you. Just what do you take away from what you've seen out of Boise State, and maybe how the Lobos win, maybe how Boise State wins?
Yeah, I don't really see that loss the same to Utah State the same way as you're explaining. I mean, they had a chance to go up three with a final free throw in regulation without allowing Utah State to go down and make that layup to send it to overtime. So, in all reality, they could have won that game very easily against Utah State. And when you look at what Degenhart and Stanley bring down low, to me, it's the best 1-2 punch of a post and center outside of the Lobos in the conference, because they're really interchangeable. Like our bigs, one can play the 4 or 5, vice versa. And I'm really liking their guard, Ogbo. Patino revealed today that we actually recruited him, and that would have been awesome to have him on this squad as well, because that guy can really shoot from three. He's athletic and long, and he's a really exciting player. And you mentioned Max Rice, senior guard, the son of the coach. He's really not having a good season shooting the ball. He's shooting 34% from the field, but he will still shoot it. So if the Lobos could get him to shoot a lot of contested shots, that would definitely be in UNM's favor. And they have the transfer Roddy Anderson, the sophomore guard, who I liked his game when I watched him play the other night against Utah State, but he's only averaging about 5 points and 2.5 assists. And from what I saw, I'm sure Jacob could hit on this better, but they don't have much of a bench outside of Cam Martin. I think they're kind of inconsistent. Maybe Jace Whiting has a game every now and then, a sophomore. But their starting 5 can definitely compete, and they're going to give the Lobos, I think, a pretty good shot, much more better, I think, than what Nevada gave us.
Jacob, I will go to you. your thoughts on Boise, and then the most important question that I always ask you: what will the line be? I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's out, but
I've already seen it.
Oh, okay.
So if you want me to guess, I'm already gonna know it.
Let,
So
let me guess, because I'm not good at this at all, and I'm going to look at it on Caesars. Hey, I would have said 8. Go ahead.
yeah, so UNM's minus 9.5 tomorrow. So an uptick from there. That's more than what we've seen. That they actually came out at a bigger underdog than Nevada did, which was kind of crazy to me. I think Boise State's a significantly better team than Nevada. However, what Rick was saying is true. I mean, this team is not deep, and I think that's why you're seeing Boise lose games at the end of the game. They play the same guys. They're heavy in minutes. They're starters. Only one guy on the bench averages over 20 minutes a game. So when you think about that, you're going to get their main guys for a majority of the game. And as we know, I mean, we play in a conference that has elevation all over the place, but not all of them are as high as Albuquerque. I think it's going to significantly weigh down on them. Dagenhart is a special player. I think he's by far their best player. If you ask me, I think Omar Stanley is really good as well. But Max Rice is, I think, to the key to the game. And Rick kind of said that is, I think you have to bait him into shooting because his natural way of wanting to play is when he gets a little space, he's going to shoot. And it hasn't worked well for him. I think out of all starting fives in the Mountain West, he has one of the worst field goal percentages out of anybody in the Mountain West Conference that starts for anybody in the Mountain West. So if you think about that, that's significantly crazy because he shoots really well from at the free throw line, but the guy can't buy a basket. So, baiting him into a couple shots, getting him into giving him like a little bit of confidence and space to shoot some shots is going to be important. But we own, the advantage on the bench. And I think that's what's going to play a key role because this team's going to tire out. I think the way this game's going to go is I'm not sure we'll jump out to as big of a lead as we did against Nevada or anything. I think this game might be, pretty close for the first half, and then you'll start to see UNM extend the lead with their depth, their overall confidence on the defensive end. But this team's going to slow you down on the offensive end. It's going to look just like Nevada. I think on KenPom, they're the 320th slowest paced offense average shot clock in the country. So there's only like 48 teams that play a slower pace on the offensive end than them. So if we can hop out in front of them, it's going to be the same type of story against Nevada. They're not going to want to run with you because they know that they don't have the depth to do so. So just a little bit of what I know about them.
You were a gambling man. I don't want to be wrong. It's almost turned in 3 or 4 weeks here of just I don't want a bet against Patrick Mahomes because I already have. I don't really want to bet against UNM. Just quickly thoughts, if you were to take anything in the game, and the over-under is 136, probably because of how Boise plays.
No, I saw 152.5. And
reading the wrong thing. That was Santa Clara and St. Mary's. It is 151. Boy,
yeah. So it's 151 and a half, and to me, I think this is another under game, just based off the fact of how Boise plays and what they're going to try and do. They're not really a team that will like to get out and run, even if you get a hold of them. They're going to rely on their defense and trying to get them back into the game. So for me, I'm not so in love with the side again. These games are starting to get really hard to pick when you're almost double-digit favorites against one of the top upper echelon teams in the Mountain West. So for me, it's under 151 is the play in this game.
Understood. I'm going to go to Eric. What are you looking for to maybe have UNM with a 6-game winning streak?
I'm going to look at the guard matchups. I mean, you mentioned Marcus Shaver leaving after last year. Their guard depth is not very good. You got Max Rice, Roddy Anderson, who was like this high profile freshman of the year in the Big West last year, transfer that came over. I think they were expecting him to contribute a little bit more, and he just hasn't been able to. Rick said he was averaging about 5 points per game. Definitely, I think they expected more out of that from a scoring perspective because he was really good at that. But early in the season, it was hard for him to fit within the offense because I think they were just trying to blend, and his skill set didn't really fit with what they were trying to do. But when you compare a Boise to like Nevada and the style of play, they like to play slow. How do you beat a team like that? You put pressure on them. You put Jaelen House on Max Rice and fluster him. I'm also going to look at the matchup and the style of play that Degenhardt's going to play with because he's not a true big. He's a stretch four. He can pull it out. He can shoot from three. He's definitely their best player. He's got a wide range of different skill sets. But we have seen some games of him not being very effective when he's kind of pulled out of that and not too gifted down low. So when he is going to have to match up with a Toppin or a Nelly and have to do some work inside, that's not really his game. He's more of like an outside shooting threat, likes to play on the perimeter. So I'm going to look at kind of the overall guard depth, look into these Lobos guards to put pressure on their guards, force them to play at a different pace that they're not used to. And I mean, we've seen what that does with some teams that can't handle that type of pressure. So that would be kind of one of my key focuses.
And I'm going to finish with you. What are you looking for tomorrow night?
Yeah, just some real quick numbers on Boise. They average 12 turnovers per game, 37 rebounds. They get 6.0 steals, they average 74 points per game. They've hit 149 threes. They shoot 44.8 percentage from the field. So, New Mexico's turned teams over, and they take pretty decent care of the ball. So Agbo has 48 threes. You mentioned, Rick, he can shoot. So just some thoughts from my son. And, Jaylen House said in the post-game show, don't change our game plan. We have to play our style no matter who the opponent is. Every team has their own unique strengths that you have to prepare for. One thing that is translated for UNM on this 5-game winning streak is energy and effort on the defensive side. Nelly hedging on ball screens, active double teams in the post, constant on-ball pressure from House, Dan in the guards, active hands creating deflections. Those things need to translate no matter who they are playing. So it's kind of funny. Paul Weir loved deflections. He'd start people on deflections, if you guys remember that. Imagine how happy he'd be about all the deflections New Mexico's getting now. They're getting plenty of them. So I think that's one of the things is Coach Leon Rice has to adjust to New Mexico. New Mexico has to certainly worry about Boise State. But when you're playing downhill and you've won 5 games in a row and by large margins, you're feeling pretty confident. So I think my son was right about that. Play our game, just keep doing what we're doing and avoid early foul trouble. They've been able to do that. House has not picked up any cheap fouls by the on the ball stick 'em defense that he plays. So I think if they keep playing the way they've been playing, there shouldn't be any issue. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea, what's going to transpire. But if New Mexico keeps playing the way they're playing, it should be another big win.
I'm looking forward to the game. Very quickly, because we've talked quite a bit. It is time.
And this is a snake of the week, bro.
Eric, I'll start with you. I don't know if you're putting you on the spot. You're snake of the week. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Is that better? There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the obvious pick would be Jaylen House, but I'm going to go with Donovan Dent, just from the defensive side, being able to face the challenge of guarding Keenan Blackshear, who is by far their most skilled player at Nevada. I know that Jared Lucas gets a lot of credibility for his ability to score, but Keenan Blackshear, he hit that game-winning shot in the paint last year, that buzzer beater that deflated the entire pit. I thought Donovan Dent did a really good job of just kind of matching the physicality, not turning down away from a challenge like that, and really just owning it and kind of showing a different side to his game. He had 11 points too. So I'm going to go with Donovan Dent as my snake of the game.
Rick, I'll go to you. Your snake of the game, snake of the week.
I'm gonna have to go back to Mash, even though his numbers weren't, super eye-popping. 14 points, just efficient shooting, and I think just what I was hitting on earlier, his willingness to now find his new role in the offense. I think that kind of attitude has spilled over to the rest of the team and allowed everyone to fit into their roles. So hats off to Mash as my snake of the week.
And this is a snake of the week, bro.
Ed, your snake of the week.
Jaylen House, he's been the linchpin the last couple of games, a big game. The couple of threes he hit. The last one he hit, I'm like, no way. And then the off balance and one from the left baseline there. So Jaylen House, he goes, New Mexico goes. So that's my snake of the week.
And to Jacob, your snake of the week.
Yeah, I would have taken Jaelen House. I think we all could take him, but to mix it up, to give somebody else some credit, I'd go with Nelly. He stepped up in a pretty big way. Toppin, I wouldn't say he was off his game, but his opportunity wasn't as big in that game. So Nelly, did what he needed to do. They have 3 significantly big guys on their team, and he held his own and more. And when we needed him to score, he scored. He was getting rebounds, battling hard, continues to do that, helps out on the ball screen. So mine would be Nelly Jr. Joseph.
Glad that was different. Ed, you'll love this one. My snake of the week is Scott Coletti, because I love running into him on press row. And can you imagine a dinner at a fine restaurant with Snake and Scott Coletti?
Well, I just texted him. He will be there tomorrow night, so
yes.
We'll get the chance to see him again.
Yes, I'm so happy to see him tomorrow night. And
can we talk about who we think Snake's going to dress up as if he does as a baseball player?
John Rocker.
John Rocker?
I don't know. Because he was a crazy what. I would go with John Rocker.
Maybe he'll be the old Mets manager, the one that disguised himself with the what's
Bobby
his name?
Valentine.
Bobby Valentine. There you go. Maybe he'll be Bobby Valentine.
We were talking about this. He's a really unknown baseball player, and it's another Jim Rome drop. That's 3. So it's how can he? I didn't mention a certain state today, but I did mention my reporting days and then a Jim Rome reference. But Niger Morgan, who was crazy on the field, and there's a famous interview of him during that 2011 season when the Brewers won the Central, and they were great with Ryan Braun and Prince Fielder. I think CC Sabathia was pitching for them, but they were interviewing him, and he just had this epic line, and I can't do it. And he was like, he looked at the reporter. He was answering the question, stopped, and then he looked at the reporter, and he was just all, I got to go. And he just ran off. It was great. But it's out of context. You'd have to look it up. But the interview was great. He just cut into it. But probably me. I don't know. That's a very valid question. I wonder who he's going to dress up as, because he was Cherry Joker for the Utah State game. And I don't know what he was apparently broke out of prison for the San Diego State game.
I think he should be Kenny Powers if he gets a wig,
yes,
or Ricky Vaughn if he could draw the hair on the back of his bald head.
Actually, Wild Thing is very good. I apologize for the John Rocker reference. I mean, he's despised in New York and was like a blatant racist. It was just like the first crazy person that came to mind. But Ricky Vaughn, I mean, he's Wild Thing. That would be it. I'd be all about that. I like that a lot. Hey, check us out on Twitter, or excuse me, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, at the Pit Press NM, on Instagram at the Pit Press NM. Check out our website, which after like 24 hours didn't work, and now it works. So we're happy about that because it looks good. Visit it at the website at thepitpressnm.com. On behalf of Ricky Thompson, Eric Moulton, Jacob Neff, Ed Nunez, I'm Ryan Tamori. We appreciate everybody listening, and we'll talk to you post Boise State.